Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 119. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Back here on Wednesday. Decided to push the show to Wednesday today because there just wasn't a whole lot to talk about yesterday morning. We knew interviews were going to come from the Steelers after their OTA practice yesterday, so we decided to hold off the show until today. Dave, before we get into the Steelers stock and what Mason Rudolph, Minkah Fitzpatrick said, I gotta ask, did you purchase the Floyd Mayweather Jake Paul fight?
yeah, I did.
I've been asking that.
I buy all of them. I'm a sucker. They see me coming when it comes to fights. You know, I in my younger years, I mean, we would always, you know, the group of guys I'd run with and whatnot, you know, we'd always find a way to get up pay-per-view money and always go to somebody's house and somebody'd order it. And I mean, even far back as like Tyson Holyfield and stuff like that. So you know, in addition to kind of growing up, obviously a football fan, and you know, my dad was a big influence on obviously me becoming a Steelers fan because he was a Cowboys and a Dolphins fan and all like that. But in addition to that, my dad loved boxing, man, and you know, Sugar Ray Leonard and back then, you know, obviously Muhammad Ali, and you know, the only you know, the fights obviously weren't pay-per-view back then, but it was a big event. They come on like, I don't know, what was it, Wide World of Sports or somewhere along those lines. But I mean, you could always, I mean, we never missed a big kind of, you know, title fight, if you will, and I think that kind of carried over with me into you know, my teens, and then, you know, obviously into my 20s and all like that. So I have a long history of just being liking those, you know. Now I don't sit there and watch, you know, Friday night Golden Gloves boxing, you know, stuff like that. But if it's a big promoted fight, and obviously, you know, along comes the MMA and that kind of stuff. But man, I'm a sucker for pay-per-view. So yeah, I spent $50 on that for sure. That was a long answer to a short.
No.
That's what I do best, you know. But man, I'll tell you this, Paul. Sure, you know, he's a big kid, man, and he certainly was in shape. I'll tell you that, and I'm surprised he you know, even though he had the height, you know, reach and all like that, I'm surprised he was able to hang with Mayweather for the 8 rounds there. But as a whole, it wasn't money well spent. No.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, it's quite the fall from the fights of the 70s and 80s boxing's heyday to now, where it just feels like it's all about celebrities and the actual fight doesn't matter. It's the hype of the fight seems to matter more than what actually happens in the ring.
You know, if you promote things the right way, right? If it's all about promotion and pique people's interest, and I mean, I tuned in of wanting to watch him get destroyed.
Were you aware of the Paul brothers before this?
Before the other night?
Yeah, before the.
Yeah, I obviously know who they are, but I know nothing about their rise to fame on YouTube, and never watched any of their videos. No, I mean, I know that they are social media, you know, celebrities, I guess, so to speak, but I don't know nothing. I don't know anything about how they got there, and obviously didn't pay any. You probably know more about them as social media stars beforehand, right?
Regrettably, I try to learn as little as I can about the Paul brothers. But you're a social media celebrity too, Dave. You're right up there.
Yeah.
Paul. I'm going to see you in the ring against like Mike Tyson, I think.
Yeah,
August.
Absolutely. Look, I wouldn't mind. You know, there was a point in my life where you probably could have talked me into to go in a couple rounds. I mean, heck, I got punched in the face for free. You know, a lot of times I deserved it too. But obviously those days were days are over. But yeah, I'm a sucker. I mean, if it's a good image, like all the UFC fights, I always usually get them, and blessed that I have the ability and the funds to be able to do that. On top of it all. But they see me coming, man. I throw the money out the window at them.
Gonna find those sketchy Facebook live streams. That was my route to watch part of the fights. But
but the thing about all those, I mean, I understand, people do that and all, but I mean, do you really want to fight all the pop-ups and the malware? I mean, why not just pay the $50 or $60 and have it right there on the TV in good quality? That's my thought on it.
Fair enough. All right, Dave, I'll transition us back to the Steelers world. Again, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Mason Rudolph speaking yesterday with the media after Tuesday's practice. Who do you want to start with here on the commentary? Do you want to start with Mason or Minkah, Dave? I'll let you pick.
Mason and Minkah, that sounds like a 70s cop show, right?
Yeah, it came on after Chips, I think.
Another one, my wife.
Oh, God.
Here we go.
You're
sending me down the rabbit hole. My wife is a sucker for all those old 70s and 80s series, and I think I'm trying to think what Emergency was one of them, I think, is showing again and all like that, and all the Chips and a lot of these you can find now on some of those sub channels, I guess, if you look hard enough for it. And the one that she's really looking for right now, and I think you can find the complete series, but you have to buy it and all, but Vegas, the old Robert Urich, Dan Tana series. I would actually like to go back and rewatch those as well. Obviously shot in Vegas, where I live now, and during the Rat Pack year, just the old Fremont Street kind of stuff and all that like that. So anyway, Minkah and Mason, let's start with the elephant. Not really an elephant in the room, but why it causes so much, I don't know, controversy or talk or whatnot. But every time Mason talks, man, it seems like he can't get 4 words out of his mouth, but becoming the most hated person in Pittsburgh, I think. And boy, certainly, I mean, it harkens me back to the days of showing my age here. Obviously, Cliff Stout, man. People hated Cliff Stout, and the guy, barely played and all, and was one of the most hated, quarterbacks, I think, in Pittsburgh there for a while. You kind of get that sense with Mason as well too. So let's start with Mason.
Sure, yeah. Usually the backup quarterback's the fan favorite, but not always the case with Mason Rudolph. I think the most notable thing he said, and really, I mean, what's the guy supposed to say? He was talking about his vision of hopefully being a starting quarterback for this team as soon as next season. Of course, someone asked him, do you believe that's a possibility? With Ben's future very much uncertain right now. And I'm trying to find the exact comment here. But, he said, quote, my goal is to be a starting quarterback in this league and for our team. I'm working towards that goal every single day. I can only control myself and the way I prepare and the way I approach and play in OTAs and camp. But he says he's not worried about 22, just worried about the here and now. But, of course, he wants to be a starter in this league. If he didn't, that would be a problem.
Yeah. I mean, what do you want him to say there? Basically, right. I thought he said all the right things. I mean, you want a guy competing for to be the starter there, and obviously it's been a rocky road for him, since being drafted and all like that. And geez, how many different quarterback coaches has he had? And really, technically, a year or two in there not having one, so to speak. There, I mean, you want this guy saying that's his goals, and he's trying to get better every day. But I thought he was also good at not taking the cheese, so to speak, and saying, look, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, and we'll worry about 2022 when it gets here. Right now, just focused on the now and getting better. So I think people just take issue with the fact that they just can't. They hope so bad, hope beyond hope, that he's not the starting quarterback in 2022, that anything that would suggest otherwise they take grand offense to. And I think that's what it comes down to, basically there, because quite honestly, the kid said absolutely nothing wrong in my eyes or my views when he talked to the media yesterday.
No, I agree. I guess the question is, and of course neither of us are going to have a great answer to this, but will he be the quarterback in 2022 for week 1? And right now it's hard to say that he won't be, because what is the alternative? But my thoughts on Mason as the long-term option for this team. I don't view that he's that guy, but he is the only quarterback under contract right now for next season.
Well, I think you set yourself up for two different things there: long term there's two questions with what you just said there: long term versus who's going to be the starter in Week 1 of the 2022 season. I think those are two separate questions. All right, and I think it needs to be addressed as such. Who do you think? Honestly, who do you think is going to be, if you had to put a good chunk of money down right now, who do you think is going to be the Week 1 starter come Week 1 of 2022 season?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it's hard not to go with Mason Rudolph right now, just because who else are you going to choose? Ben, I'm under the assumption Ben's going to retire. Not that it's a guarantee, but that's my belief right now. So he's off the table, and you got Dobbs and Haskins, and Rudolph's the guy they've extended. So would he be my choice? Potentially not, but based on the team's comments, and they seem to be high on his game and talked about his improvements and how he played last season in the finale versus Cleveland. Yeah, it's hard to go against the idea of Mason Rudolph, not being a starting quarterback week 1.
Look, like it or not, they have some level some level of faith and confidence in him. All right. I mean, and really going back a couple years ago as well too. I mean, and obviously you're not going to have Kevin Colbert and Art Rooney II come out and say, "Oh, we don't think he can be a starter." They're not going to talk negatively about a player like that. But I think they have shown it now. Did they get him at a very cheap price as part of this extension they just signed? Yeah, absolutely they did. They don't have a lot invested in him, and really overall not that much guaranteed money. So if for some unknown, here's the worst case scenario, for the Steelers, and that would obviously be that Mason has to somehow play a lot of snaps in 2021, because that means either something has happened to Ben Roethlisberger from a health or physical standpoint, or B, Ben's just absolutely does not have it anymore, and man, you might as well get him out of there and see what you have in Mason to kind of close out the season. So none of those are great scenarios for Mason to have to play a lot of snaps here. All right. But let's assume he doesn't. Let's just assume he plays, I don't know, game and a half equivalent, and he plays along the same lines that he played in that finale against Cleveland last season there. I mean, there's absolutely zero reason to think that he won't at least open up the 2022 season as the Week 1 starter, and where it goes from there, it's entirely up to him. At that point there, but I think if you go back and people don't want to do it because they're afraid what they might find, but if you go back and listen to what Kevin Colbert has said, listen to what Art Rooney II has said about a guy like Mason Rudolph, and then you look at the extension that they signed him to here just recently. There is absolutely zero reason to suggest that right now, from where we sit, and look, a lot of things can happen in a year and 95 days or whatever it is. I mean, that's a long time, brother. I mean, life moves fast. But from where we sit right now, there is absolutely zero reason for anyone to think that Mason Rudolph won't be the Week 1 starter in 2022.
The biggest variable, and this is of course an unknown for everybody, is the potential of a rookie being drafted, in the first round. And the quarterback class next year, I've heard that there are a lot of names. Is there an elite standout guy? Maybe not, but there are maybe 5-6 names that could certainly be in that first round conversation. And so, do you sit there and try to find the next Ben immediately, assuming he retires after the season? And do you trade up or draft a potential stud quarterback in the first round, as they did know for, or do you just wait if a guy isn't there? You just want to really see what you have in Mason Rudolph. So that might be the biggest competition, is that unknown rookie that's in college right now.
Sure, and I think it's totally plausible that in the 2022 draft a quarterback is taken. We talked this year that if it didn't happen this year, there's a very decent chance that it could happen in 2022. Or we talk about a first, second, third round. Who knows? I mean, the odds of them drafting a quarterback are obviously higher in 2022 now that they have not drafted one in 2021. I believe. Now, within that, I still believe that this organization subscribes to the theory that even if they do draft a quarterback, that that quarterback would not be thrown to the wolves in week one, unless multiple injuries or something dictates otherwise. Now I know you see around the league that you see these kids come in and now they're moved along faster and they're able to learn and pick up these offenses, and you can have them start in week one. I get it. I see it. I've seen it for the last couple of years here. Does that necessarily mean it's right? Who knows here? But I still believe that the philosophy, organizational-wise, for the Steelers is, and look, a lot of people continue to forget what the plan was with Ben Roethlisberger in 2004. I mean, in fact, Cowher, I think, just in one of his radio interviews, just kind of retouched on that. The plan was for him to be the number 3, and then, when Charlie had the knee, they thought maybe they would have to deal with just maybe a couple of weeks with Ben. Okay, we can get him up to speed, get him to be the backup for a couple of games there. Well, then obviously Charlie's knee, needed further attention there. Tommy Maddox, had the elbow injury and all like that, and boom, there he is on the field. If you would have polled everybody in that room after the selection of, or 2 weeks after the selection of Ben Roethlisberger in 2004, I bet they would have told you that the odds of him taking any kind of meaningful snap in 2004 was nil, none, nada, zilch, but stuff happens, right?
But as you said, different time period. 2004 feels like an eternity ago compared to today's rookies.
I accept that, but I still don't think that's changed the organizational philosophy on that.
But what do you base that off of? Because we've seen obviously different positions, but we've seen rookies come in and play right away. No longer do first and second round. I mean, we're talking about how Pat Freiermuth isn't playing heavy snaps this year. Then that's a problem. If Kendrick Green isn't starting center early in the season, that could be an issue. I mean, if we're going to talk about the tight ends and the centers getting on the field right away, I think the quarterbacks at least have to have the opportunity for that. I think I don't put those guys in the box and say sit them. You have to start them right away. Whenever they're ready, you play them, and you don't try to overthink it, and you look at it just based on the guy and the situation, as opposed to just an overall philosophy without even thinking about the guy himself that you have.
And it's just a gut. I have nothing to go on other than it just being a gut feeling that betting. Right. Like I said, I bet it's within the organization. Now, week 2 is not week 1. Week 3 is not week 1. I'm talking about week 1 starter right out of the chute. All right. Now, does that mean that you can't draft a quarterback and you get two games into the into the 2022 season and say, oh, well, here we are? I mean, you're obviously not going to pull the plug on a guy like Mason Rudolph or whoever the starter is if the team's 2-0 or 3-0, right? Now, but if you get off to an 0-2, 0-3 start or somebody gets hurt, well, that creates a different scenario. I'm willing to bet you whatever amount of money that you want to bet that if they draft a quarterback, even if it's in the first round, even if it's within the first 10, 15 picks of the 2022 draft, that player will not be the week 1 starter in 2022, barring a something injury, something that that's why it's that. I just want to bet you that's the organization's philosophy on that. Now, as far as look, this team's never been really overly afraid. You say, well, you drafted this offensive player. Look, since Dick LeBeau moved on, there was always something with the defensive side of football with draft picks getting on the field. It just did not happen a lot with a guy like Dick LeBeau, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was often to the detriment of the team.
All right, now on the offensive side of football, though, outside of the quarterback position, well, really it's hard to say outside the quarterback position because, I mean, technically Ben was not the Week 1 starter in his 2004 season, but has there – and look, you're not going to throw a sixth-round rookie draft pick into on offense into a starting lineup more than likely unless injury dictates. But talking about top, say, 2 or 3 round draft picks on the offensive side of the ball, we have seen those kids on the field.
Yeah,
I mean,
even across the board,
right? Even going back to, I mean, look, 2010. That's 11 years away. I mean, Marquise Pouncey came in, as a first round draft pick and won that job, and there he was, And I think even going back to, heck, I think Heath Miller got on the field, right?
Yeah, Miller, DeCastro was going to until he had a knee injury.
Right.
So all the top picks play sooner than later. That's been the philosophy that the entire league has adopted. Like you back to 2004. Eli Manning didn't start till week 11. Phillip Rivers didn't play his first 2 seasons, essentially, with the Chargers. I mean, it's just a whole different world. And so, yeah, some quarterbacks Patrick Mahomes had his rookie season, but I think you just base it off of the situation. And if they draft a quarterback in the first round, I think he's going to be more talented than Mason Rudolph. Now, is he more ready than Rudolph? That'll be, question to be determined, once they bring him into camp in the preseason and stuff. But if he's better than Rudolph, he gives you a better chance to win. He's more mobile, works in Canada's offense better. It's hard to sit that guy for week 1.
I disagree. I think it's the right decision to not throw unless it's a Manning.
But you're not necessarily throwing the guy.
There's another one of those coming.
Yeah, Archie's going to a Clemson, I think. I mean, boy, Peyton struggled mightily his rookie season. But, yeah, I don't want to say you're throwing the guy into the Wolves because maybe the guy's ready for it. I mean, just because it's week 1 doesn't mean that he can't step up and be ready for that challenge. I don't want to just automatically write the guy off and say he's not going to be ready for week 1 because maybe he proved himself and shows that he is ready.
Like I said, I bet you dollars to donuts that whenever this next one does finally come along via the draft, that he won't be a week 1 starter right out of the chute.
Right. Yeah, it very well could be. I think it's just up in the air right now. And obviously, that quarterback isn't even on the roster right now. We have no idea who the guy is, and so it's all a hypothetical exercise right now.
We went way down. Yeah, we went way down the rabbit hole there, and I figured we'd probably get into a conversation sort of similar to what just happened there. Now, circling back to Mason once again there. Look, I mean, what was he All Pro worthy? Was he Pro Bowl worthy in Week 17 against the Browns? Absolutely not. But was there a level of improvement that should have turned a few heads?
There was improvement. I think it was the best game of his NFL career. But I still think the underlying issues that have plagued him the most notably his pocket presence and just overall footwork within the pocket, still existed in a pretty negative way. And so I think there was improvement. The deep ball looked good, and it was refreshing to see, with considering how bad it was with Ben when he started last season. But the main core issues in his game, I think, still are there. Now, maybe they'll get better this year. We'll see him in the preseason, et cetera. Maybe some regular season action as well. But I still think the biggest flaws in his game are still flaws.
I think no, he didn't take the bait either. They gave him a chance to say, do you view that your progress as a quarterback has kind of been set back by kind of not having proper coaching in the quarterback room the first couple of years? Look, I like that answer too. He didn't, he still thinks he progressed and all like that, and gave credit, gave some credit to Randy Fiedler and Matt Sims, who was, I guess, quasi. I mean, what really has happened in that quarterback room since Todd Haley left? Honestly,
Well, I do think it was detrimental that they didn't have a dedicated quarterback coach. And
I do too, but I'm glad he didn't take the bait though.
No, yeah, because that's a whole story if he says that for sure. So I mean, that's a smart answer by him to give. But for us to answer it, I think truthfully, and if in an honest moment, I think Rudolph would probably agree. It's nice to have a dedicated quarterback coach because Fiedler got pulled in so many different ways, his first year. And so with a young quarterback room behind Ben that year, I don't know how the team decided that not having a dedicated quarterbacks coach to work with those guys was the right move to approach.
And even what was Matt Sims?
I mean, he worked with the quarterbacks as kind of an assistant sort of deal. I don't know,
but that's not fair to really label him as a quarterback. I mean, look,
no.
they have and really to be quite honest with you, what was Matt Canada? What is Matt Canada? He's when you hear Matt Canada's name, you automatically think college offensive coordinator, right?
Yeah.
All right, but what I'm getting at here is you don't think quarterbacks coach, right?
Was he never a quarterback's coach at any point in his college?
I'm just saying, what do you think of when you think of him?
I mean, just an offensive guy. I think that obviously when you're an OC, you're working hand in hand with a quarterback. So, I mean, that's what I think of.
Has he ever been a quarterback's coach?
Yeah, Northern Illinois in 2001, Indiana 2004. He was the OC and quarterbacks coach at NC State and Wisconsin and Pitt. So yeah, basically everywhere he's gone, he's been an OC and quarterbacks coach. And those things, obviously, you're an OC, you're working very, very closely with your quarterback.
Right, but what it gets back to what I said. When you think about him, what do you think of? You really think about him being termed an offensive coordinator more than being a quarterbacks coach. Now, what do you think of when you think of Mike Sullivan? Other than Penguins head coach.
Yeah, I don't think of the Steelers quarterback coach, but that's what I think of as someone who's worked with quarterbacks throughout a large chunk of his career.
Right. So, I mean, in reality, this is really his first really, rubber stamped resume quarterbacks coach in Mike Sullivan, right?
Well, I still think Canada. I mean, I'm sure he did a fine job last year, so I consider that to be his quarterbacks coach.
All right. Well, what I'm getting at here is, look, and Mason talked about this as well too. Mike Sullivan's a stickler for details and carrying out fakes and footwork and really drill orientated there. So it's going to be interesting to see whatever upside, if any, there is left in Mason Rudolph.
Mm-hmm.
They should be able to get it out of him this summer.
Right. And I'm not surprised to hear that comment about Sullivan, focusing on accountability and details and all that, because he's an Army guy. And so, that's what Army guys do. So that I think that's a good hire. Right.
So now look, if you get into preseason and Mason has a 30 play performance that yields a 78.2 quarterback rating, that's not going to be pretty,
Mm-hmm.
And also, look, he's probably not going to get if he does play well, it will be it's just preseason,
Right.
So the kid's in a no-win situation, right?
Yeah, if he does well in the preseason, then it all comes down to regular season play for him, because we've seen enough of him up to this point that we have a good feel for his game, and he's experienced, and so the preseason shouldn't be too daunting for him. I think it's more about the focus on a guy like Dwayne Haskins and his potential development and how he looks in Pittsburgh. But yeah, for Mason Reed, the real test will come if and when he plays in the regular season.
Why is Dwayne Haskins such the golden child in the eyes of Steeler fans, and Mason Rudolph right now is the guy they cannot wait to get out the door?
Probably because Haskins hasn't taken a snap in Pittsburgh, and so once he makes a couple of mistakes, then the tides can turn pretty quickly as well. Everyone likes the new shiny toy, and Haskins has the definite talent advantage and the big arm and all that that's attractive to fans. But I think that's how it goes with quarterback. And once you start making mistakes, and fans start yelling at you.
Now, I think our very own Jonathan Heitritter did a fantastic job in a recent film room on Dwayne Haskins and all like that. But there are qualities on tape with Dwayne Haskins, and I said this right from the get-go, right after Steelers signed him, that show why he was probably drafted in the first round. But you still got to put it all together on the field, and there is, outside of him being able to throw the football through the car wash without getting wet, though he doesn't know where the non-wet football is going to go, and that's evident in the deep ball. Why is there a reason to follow kind of the fan intuition that it's only because he hasn't had proper coaching yet that Dwayne Haskins hasn't reached his potential of being a first-round bona fide franchise quarterback? Look, he's drafted in the first round. You drafted in the first round, you're expected to be a franchise quarterback, correct?
Sure, absolutely.
And anything less than being stellar gets you run out of town, basically. And I guess what I'm getting at here is where's the optimism rooted at? Give me a reason why I think that I should think that Dwayne Haskins should be the better option for the Steelers in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone can really give you a great answer right now because the guy hasn't taken a single snap in Pittsburgh. But I think obviously he has a ton of talent, and maybe being in Pittsburgh with a little less pressure, a little less stress, not being that face of the franchise the way he was in Washington and all the pressure that comes with it, will maybe kind of allow him to reset and really grow and develop that way and kind of be in a more, a little more stable of a situation. I think things were fairly stable last year with Ron Rivera coming over in Washington, but Pittsburgh's been the more consistent, stable ground than I think Washington's been for the past several years, for a long time, really. So, I don't have a good answer for you. We'll just have to wait and see on that. Let the guy take some snaps before we start drawing any sort of conclusions about what he can and can't do. But I think maybe this will be a little less stressful of an environment for him.
All right, circle back to Mason here. Why such the vile when it comes to every word out of his mouth?
Well, I mean, I haven't seen the vile as much as you have, I guess, with those comments yesterday. I'm sure some people were upset about the way he said about being a starting quarterback or whatever, but I think people just kind of get set in their ways on how they feel about a guy, and that's just sometimes how it goes.
Here's the thing, if you're a fan of the Steelers and future past 2021, you should be obviously rooting for both of these kids. For one of them, either Mason or Haskins. Just oh my God, look at that, because these franchise quarterbacks just don't grow on a tree. You don't just go into the draft and get one and there it is. I think it takes a lot of luck in there. I think it's just not as simple as people make it out to be. You probably have a better shot. I don't know what the odds are, but you have a better shot at maybe one of these guys like Mason or Dwayne Haskins, hopefully maybe being the guy that can help you win and get you into the playoffs deep in the next couple of years than to thinking you're just going to go get that in the draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I understand. You try to throw as much at the wall and see what sticks and hope something sticks. But I still have the belief of, regardless of what the Steelers decide to do next season, the actual long-term answer or the actual future of this team is not on this roster when it comes to the quarterback position.
I think it's there in 2022. I think beyond that, obviously.
Well, I'm saying the long term, the next actual franchise quarterback is not Mason Rudolph, nor is it Dwayne Haskins. That's my belief. Will the team, find out differently and try to explore different routes? Probably, but my belief is the next actual franchise quarterback is in college right now.
And do you think that kid will be drafted this year or next year or what?
I really don't have any idea. If I'm Pittsburgh, I'm on red alert looking for that quarterback immediately. I mean, I was looking for that this past draft, but obviously it just really that opportunity never really presented itself. But I am on high alert looking for that, like my hair's on fire, because I think it is right now in the quarterback room.
And then odds, once again, I mean, obviously you have situations where an Aaron Rodgers falls and all like that. If you're going to get the next guy that's going to be the guy that can be the guy, generally that guy is drafted within the first 15 picks of the draft, right?
Generally, yeah. So again, I'm all for trading up. All the cards are on the table. Again, not saying that it will happen or that it absolutely has to happen, but you really have to look at every avenue to make it happen, because your franchise is at a standstill until you find that guy. You'll always be a decent team, but that one piece away, and that is the most critical piece. Obviously, is the quarterback, and so you got to run like that's the key to your long-term success, because it is.
All right, Mason, talking about the installation of Canada's offense and all.
Yeah, said a lot of good things about Matt Canada. Let me pull up the quote here for you. Let me see. He says, quote, "He's an unbelievable coach. He's got a great offensive mind, but he's hungry like everybody else in the way he works, the way he shows up in the building every single day and teaches. He's not a yeller. He doesn't really come down on guys, but he's a great teacher and he'll pull you aside and answer any question you have." I think he just says, "I just like his demeanor overall, and I think he's going to do a great job." And so good comments there from Rudolph on Matt Canada. I always like that approach better. I like the teacher more than I like the guy that just yells and screams out there. I mean, there's a different approaches every coach will have, and they can all be effective, but I prefer Canada's approach. And so it's a big year for Matt Canada. First year as an NFL OC, a big jump from the college game, a lot of expectations coming with that, and a lot of pressure this year to win in what could be Ben's final season.
I think also Mason talking about they had a good chunk of it maybe put of this offense, at least kind of from a terminology I guess standpoint, put in last year and all, but there is a lot of new stuff, and it has taken some flashcards to flip over all the terminology and stuff like that. On top of it, it sounds like Ben, Mason, and Dobbs all got a good head start on this last year to hear Mason talk. Now within that, your fourth quarterback is Haskins, and his head's probably spinning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot of newness there for Haskins overall, but in some sense they're all sort of in the same boat. Where obviously Rudolph and Ben and Dobbs have the benefit of the experience of being in Pittsburgh and with Canada last year, but it is kind of a new system in the same ways, and so it's not like Canada's been the OC for 8 years and Haskins has to come in and learn the system. The other guys have it established and it hasn't changed for them. So to some degree, they're all kind of in that same boat.
I also liked Mason talking about how the process with Canada was last year and how he felt like Canada did a good job of making sure there was a plan. Even though Mason, obviously his job was to be the backup for all but one game last season, but they had a good plan in place of if for some reason he had to go into the game, what was it that he liked? What 10 dropbacks, what 10 RPOs, what 10 play, what is he most comfortable with there? So that'll obviously be hopefully kind of carry over this year as well too. So look, I mean it's an exciting time I think all the way around because you got a new offensive coordinator in there, but yet an offensive coordinator that was with the team last year, so you do have some degree of whatever that is carryover. A lot of stuff should look a lot less clunkier than it did last year. I mean, you get into the start of last season there, man. The timing on a lot of the motions seemed to be off, and as the charting kind of indicated there, they'd get past the script, and where would the motion go?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, and then obviously with more of an emphasis on a running game this year, that's going to be different here. All right, what else stuck out to you most about Mason other than him really learning how to measure his answers now? Good for him,
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's used to it. He's been in the spotlight enough to I think understand the way some questions get phrased, and that's just had some nice things to say about the rookies as well, saying that Kendrick's been, quote, a pleasure to work with, and said Pat Fryermuth's got really good hands and is a really patient and great route runner. So some predictable but good things to say about the Steelers rookie class.
All right, have we got that top to bottom there?
Yeah, I think we're good. So we can flip over to what Minkah Fitzpatrick had to say, and he said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Doesn't expect his role to change too dramatically in 2021.
Yeah, that kind of I didn't like that portion of his answer, to be honest with you, because there is still some that's broken in that defense. And I think some of those warts are going to, with the losses that this team has had during I think you're going to see some of those warts a little bit here. And teams have, he just cannot continue to be asked or expect to be tied to the post. They got.
Well, I don't think he was tied to the post last year.
No, I mean they moved him around in some rope, but they've got to be willing, I think, more than ever to move him around a little bit more, even down low in some situations here in the slot. Because quarterbacks are going to really identify him now as the guy to more than ever to stay away from, especially if he's easily identified tied to the post. So, I would just like to see him not take the angle of if it's not broke, don't fix it, because it was broke in certain aspects.
With Minkah? No, what sense was it broken?
The defense as a whole.
Right, but how does that impact Minkah's role then? How should what was broken with the defense change what Minkah was doing?
Well, him saying that it's not broke is wrong.
Well, he's saying about his role though. Right? He's saying his role isn't going to change. Am I misunderstanding that?
I think the way he kind of phrased it, I believe maybe you're misinterpreting it there. I viewed it as him saying, look, the defense was not broke, so why change what we're doing?
I'm just reading. Matthews says, asked how he sees his role changing this year. Minkah said, I don't think too much is going to change. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So maybe I'm misinterpreting his role versus the defense as a whole, or what?
Okay, well, I take it as him saying, his role doesn't need to change because the defense isn't broke.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think the big challenge this year, and I still want to do a video on it, and I plan to, is that because they did roll him down a lot last year, and Robert covered, especially on third down, but they were able to do that because often Cam Sutton would rotate to the deep half or deep middle, whatever Minkah's usual free safety assignment was. This year, who is going to be in that Cam Sutton role, able to rotate and play safety? Because it's probably not going to be Cam Sutton, because he's going to be your slot corner, your right corner, wherever they decide to line him up. So is it going to be, I don't know who it would be, maybe Arthur Millette, but he's got to make the team first. And so I think that could be one real issue where I think this year there's a chance that Minkah gets tied to the post more because they don't have the rotation, they don't have the versatility and the flexibility in this defense as they did last year to allow Minkah to spin down and not have to play the post safety so often.
Well, that's going to take away, once again, like I said, I don't think he should be tied to the post as much because I think that takes away the ability of him being a playmaker and all.
Right, yeah, if he's out there in center field, then quarterbacks are going to throw away from him, and he won't be able to impact the game, obviously, quite as much. So anything else that Minkah said, talked about wanting to become a more vocal leader, which I think is a really important key because it is going to be such a changing and a lot younger group in the secondary with, James Pierre and Justin Lane, Antoine Brooks Jr., all the rookies, Norwood and Shakur Brown, whoever steps up there. There's going to be a lot more youth and newness on the field this year compared to last, where last year kind of everyone was the same and veteran guys, and it was the same group, a lot of continuity there. Not going to be the case this season. And so you're going to need guys like Minkah and Hayden and Sutton to step up and be leaders that help these guys, these young guys try to mature and make an impact right away.
I believe the team has gone to him to hopefully maybe get that, more of the vocal leadership role out of him. But I don't view that as who he is, though.
Yeah, he's not a real loud guy. So maybe I think it's probably less of him being like a raw leader guy, but more of a, teach these guys, after practice kind of thing. I think he talked about that when watching extra film or staying after practice and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's going to be, in a very loud, obvious way, him being a leader, the way that, say, Cam Hayward is. But I think in a lot of small ways he can help out these guys.
Right. I think it's great to say. I think it's great to put out there. I think it's great to ask of a player, but I just don't view him as being that guy, and Cameron Sutton might be a different story. Cameron Sutton, he could talk, man.
He's like Socrates or something. He really gets.
He can talk, and I think Joe Hayden's obviously good and a good leader in that secondary. But how much this is probably going to be it for him more than likely this season. I just don't view It sounds better coming out of the mouth than I visualize what's actually going to happen. And it's no disrespect to Minkah. I just don't view him as that guy,
Right. I just think a lot of fans, a lot of analysts are overlooking the benefit of the continuity of the Steelers defense, in particular the secondary I had last year. Because from 2019 to 2020, there were no changes in the secondary. The top 6 guys were the same 6 guys. And so this year, there's a lot of change there. No Mike Hilton, no Steven Nelson, and a lot of young guys stepping up. And so the growing pains associated with that, the lack of flexibility, lack of versatility, communication errors that could pop up, a lot of things that weren't an issue at all last year are now potentially going to be pretty big problems, I think, in 2021.
Once again, this goes back to where do we think this defense is going to be this year as opposed to last year? Are you expecting the adjusted net yards per passing attempt number to be under 5? I'm not.
Yeah, I think you asked that on Monday's live stream. I don't have a great gut feel of where the number is going to be, but I think this defense will have taken a step back. Still be a good defense. Still get a lot of pressure and takeaways and make plays for sure. It's hard to play defense in today's NFL. I think turnovers are the biggest key of all of a good defense. But yeah, I think this defense won't be as good as it was last season.
I think the biggest question is what degree of regression is there?
Right.
Now, hopefully they can shore up that run a little. I think they have the ability to be actually maybe a little better against a run. Even I know you're missing guys like the guys that were good against the run, guys like Mike Hilton and obviously Bud Dupree. But even so, were they outstanding against the run last season or last two seasons really?
They were great against the run the first 6 weeks, and then they lost Devin Bush, and they lose Bud Dupree later in the season, and Tyson Alualu's on that MCL and ankle sprain, and so everything kind of tanked from there. So you're right about that. The back half of the season, I think, when you get healthier this year, even with the losses of Bud Dupree, Mike Hilton, their run defense can be better than where they finished up last year. I agree with you on that.
I think the big question is and look, as long as you're not getting, as long as you're holding down the success rates as a whole, that's fine against the run. I think the biggest question is where is how large of regression is there going to be with the defensive passing game in 2021 when it comes to this defense, and can the offense make enough steps forward for the Steelers to offset that? Because I will be flabbergasted if this defense comes in with an adjusted net yards per passing attempt number under 5. Now, does it have to be under 5 for this team to compete and go deep in the playoffs? No, absolutely not. However, it better be around 5.6 or lower. If you want a legit, based on what we expect this offense to be or not be in 2021, if this defense can't flat out take the football away or get out to the quarterback to some degree, and in other words, produce adjusted net yards per passing attempt number of it's got to be under 6. We know that, but 5.75 or less, then forget about it, man. I mean, just flat out forget about it. I mean, you might make it into the playoffs, but that's going to be as a a wild card team, and then the likelihood of you making a run at that point probably nil. At that point there. So, all right, now what did you think about Minkah's? One of the answers I just cringed at was him talking about this defense and how they handled certain, being spread out in certain situations and the wide receivers on the linebackers. I mean, come on, man. I mean, it's nice that he spread it out and told us, what side gets the heavier look and all like that. But, you just putting lipstick on a pig there, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the exact quote right now. I mean, it's one of those, what is he supposed to say kind of things. So either you kind of throw the coaching staff under the bus or you just kind of, say something else.
There was some people thrown under the bus, though. I mean, he managed to get that part of it out of there.
Yeah, what's the exact quote on that? I'm trying to find the
let's see here. He says
all right, I think I found
part of it was we were missing our 2 starting inside linebackers. Okay, so obviously they were missing Devin Bush as of week 6, but Robert Spillane, when did that happen?
That was the Washington game, I think, week 11, week 13, whatever it was.
All right. Now, was when did Avery Williamson? That was right at the trade deadline. But when did he start seeing? There were still situations when you had Robert Spillane, who was kind of technically one of your stars. And I mean, were you going to be in any better situation if Vince Williams had been on the field instead of Robert Spillane?
No.
All right, so I think he's kind of avoiding the whole, trying to put it on the players and not so much the scheme.
Yeah, he's saying, we had to bring in guys that didn't understand the playbook well, and teams attacked that. They attacked those guys, which they did, but it doesn't really matter who you put out there, how well they understand the playbook. I mean, to some degree it'll get better, but when you line it up, Jarvis Landry and Robert Spillane in the wild card game, Spillane's back there, he's healthy again, he's still getting attacked, and of course the Browns are still winning those matchups. So until the Steelers change the scheme and the concept, the results are not going to consistently get better.
Right. I mean, even if you had Devin Bush out there, how would he have fared in some of those situations?
Yeah, he's still going to struggle. Any linebacker's going to struggle matched up against a slot receiver or any receiver.
So I don't like the way he kind of addressed that. And look, I mean, what was Avery Williamson worth what they gave up for him, and technically, probably not. I think we kind of even said it, be careful what you wish for, or what you kind of expect here when it comes to Avery Williamson. Really, I thought he provided even a little less than what I thought he might be able to provide for this team.
Right. But to the point about the matchup issue, it's just, again, until the Steelers actually radically change their approach to empty at a heavy personnel, and again, I think they want to try to disguise some of their coverages and mix things up. I'd rather play it straight up and give myself the best matchups and put these corners on receivers and walk the linebacker out. And yeah, that might declare man coverage, but I'll take my chances with my guys as opposed to trying to feel like I'm smarter with my scheme. And man is at the zone trying to confuse the quarterback. It just has not been effective. And this is not a new issue. I mean, to Minkah's point, he's saying the issue was the injuries. Well, this issue's been going on for 5 years now, and so this isn't exclusive to just injuries that happened last year.
Right. So I wasn't a fan. I kind of cringed. Maybe by the coming the weekend, maybe you can prove that, pull up some of that old footage, and because I know you wrote kind of extensively about it, and kind of show where maybe Minkah needs to re-examine that.
And I think he probably knows that, but it's just like, what is he supposed to say? Because he can't be like, yeah, the coaches just keep saying you got to do our jobs and it's not working, but they just keep, it's a coaching issue. It's a schematic issue.
I think the best way to answer that question is we've got to look at better ways of handling those situations. Right. When you spread them out, when you're throwing 3 to the strength and 2 to the weak side, blah, blah, blah. Instead of saying, we were hurt, guys we brought in who are no longer here didn't do their job, and that's it.
But the way the coaches respond to this whenever these mistakes happen, because they've said this in the past, is it's okay. It's not a schematic issue. It's a player's not doing their job. I mean, Robert Spillane was saying, I got to do my job better. I didn't play it right. And there's nothing there's no way he can play that he's going to win on a regular basis.
Nope.
And so the coaches are telling the players, you got to execute it better. And so that's what Minkah's saying, is that the coaches are coming in and saying, we're just not executing it well enough. But they're putting those guys in impossible situations, and not just bad coaching.
All right, some positive things about Justin Lane and James Pierre, which is good to hear coming out of Minkah's mouth.
Yeah, haven't talked a ton about those guys here this offseason, but it's such a critical spring and summer for both of those guys. There's a real opportunity at that right corner spot, and I really think this year's make or break for a third-year guy like Justin Lane. He says, quote, Justin and James, both of them are out there competing every day. Both of them are hungry. Both of them worked really hard this offseason. They came back in great shape. They look good. I could tell they studied the fundamentals of the playbook, the whole nine. It's going to be a tough competition for sure. And so I don't want to discount Justin Lane, but I think it'll be a good battle, and hopefully those guys bring out the best in each other.
And once again, it gets into what do you expect them to say, versus, but it is good to hear, he says both of those guys are something on the nine. Another's been studying, been on, appear to be on the details at least. From what Minkah said. And look, they're gonna have to make no bones about it. One of those guys is probably gonna have to step up.
Yeah, they better.
And probably play a considerable more amount of snaps in 2021 as well too. I don't think it's fair to ask another player about a fifth-year option, but. Mm-hmm. He should have said, look, I don't like talking about none of man's money, but he didn't say anything wrong about it. He just says he wish he would have got it, but that's part of the business, and not much there really to talk about. I mean, what else is he supposed to say about Edmonds? Wishes that he would have got it, but I kind of cringe when players get asked about other players' contracts or whatnot.
Yeah. Puts them in kind of a really awkward spot because they have no control over the situation. And of course, he would like to see that happen for Terrell Edmonds. But we talked about the chemistry they have and how hard Edmonds has worked. I have no doubts about that. But obviously Steelers did not feel as strongly as Minkah Fitzpatrick did.
But people want to run Terrell Edmonds out of town, and he's missed one game during his career due to injury. Yet they want Malik Hooker signed off the street, who's missed almost 50% of the possible games he could have played in. If Malik Hooker was drafted by the Steelers and he had missed the amount of games that he's missed right now due to injury, what would they'd be trying to buy him? They'd be putting his house on the market for him, or trying to get him. It's just kind of weird because once again, I think this goes back to what you said earlier in the show, and really you've said it, several times over the years here. It's always the flashy new cubic zirconian kind of thing that fans want to get their hands on.
Right.
They like the new flashy name versus what they've seen for the last two or 3 years. And look, no way, shape, or form do I think that Terrell Edmunds is a Pro Bowler, All Pro selection. In fact, I was one of the ones that there are a lot of people that said, "Oh, David, this is a slam dunk. Terrell's going to get his fifth-year option," and I was the one right from the get-go that said, "Whoa, not so fast, my friends."
Yeah, no, I was that guy telling you that, so I was 100% wrong about that.
And now look, has he improved? Yeah, absolutely. But once again, if the organization had any doubts in their mind that Terrell Edmunds was worth $6 million a year in 2022, they would have picked up that option. Plain and simple. Because let's face it, it's we're looking at this team from a cap perspective right now, and it's always dangerous to do this far out, But it's a lot easier to do when you don't have the Ben Roethlisberger $30 or $40 million cap charge laying in there as well. This team doesn't look to be hurting. Let's put it to you that way. Mm-hmm. And $6 million for an experienced, strong safety, still young. You would think it's not all that taxing that. That is a pretty cut and dry decision. Either he's worth that amount or he's not. And they, in so many words, they basically said that he's not.
Sure. Yeah. No, we talked about that when the news came along in early May. Is that I don't want to say that there's no chance he gets an extension or that he gets re-signed or something. We'll see what the season brings, but I think the odds don't bode well for that happening. But again, I'm not going to make predictions about that because I was super wrong before. So I'll let the season play out.
Well, look, I thought it could have really, I was open to it going either way with Edmunds. I thought there was a chance that it could go either way, but I just didn't think it was as slam dunk as maybe you or several. There were several reasons to maybe question whether or not they would pick up that fifth-year option on that.
What do you think he has to do this year for them to entertain re-signing him to some sort of extension?
Yeah. I really, what does he got to do? Well, other than a minimum contract,
just a longer-term extension of decent money. Because obviously if he picks off 9 passes, that changes, but that's unlikely to happen.
He's got to play out of his freaking mind. Plain and simple.
Is it just better in coverage, where he's just better in coverage and breaking up more passes, or do you think he needs that splash of making that big impact play of interceptions and forced fumbles, etc.?
It's unfortunately got to show up in the stat sheet.
Okay, I agree.
More, it can't be, well, he was in the right position here, he wasn't the one that got beat. Him merely playing the position correctly is not going to be good enough, if that makes sense.
No, I'm with you. I think they want to see that big play potential. They don't want to pay safety who isn't going to give you those really high, impact changing type plays. And Edmunds obviously has not done that in his career.
And he's got to really do a lot better job, and he has improved, I think, some as a tackler and with his angles, but it's still not. There's still that level that makes you wonder, and usually those stripes don't change in my opinion at this point, with him.
His tackling really improved last season greatly.
Okay.
That's what the numbers show. His missed tackle rate went from 12.5% to 9% or something. It was a really, really strong number.
I think he's really got to blow. It's got to be mind blowing, and if it is even if he does put up the kind of stats that they want to see out of him, if I'm him, I'm saying you guys had your chance to pick up the option, and knowing that the safety. The free agent safety market's not great year in, year out anyway, because usually either you're great and you get tagged, or you have your fifth year option picked up, or you don't. It's usually the haves and the have-nots, specifically when it comes to that safety market there. So if he beats the system, so to speak, I'm beating it all the way to March whatever, and I'm putting myself up to the highest bidder.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll cross that bridge if and when it happens, and hopefully it does happen for Terrell Edmunds, because that means good things for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense and for himself personally. So anything else from Minkah or Mason you wanted to touch on we haven't addressed yet?
I don't know what else was out there from Minkah that we haven't.
I think that was just about it on Minkah. I can kind of go back through things one last time, but I don't think there was too much else.
All in all, I mean, these are fun to hear. I mean, we look forward. Heck, we got another one coming up in 55 minutes where we're going to hear from probably another 2 players today, and we'll write about it. We'll have a lot of stuff to talk about there. But in the end all do all, what have we learned? What did we learn about Mason? About what Mason and Minkah had to say on Tuesday. What's the biggest takeaway from either one of those guys?
It's a really good question. I don't know if there even really is much of one, to be honest with you. I mean, the headline was, Mason saying he wants to be a starting quarterback, but that's not a takeaway. I mean, again, of course he wants to do that. It'd be a problem if he didn't want to be that guy. So I really don't know what the biggest story was coming out of those two guys.
I really think the biggest story out of both those guys from Wednesday was something that's not going to get a lot of talk. It's just more about Mike Sullivan being more of an experienced quarterbacks coach, a stickler for the details, drill driven, working on the footwork. I really think that's the biggest story to come out of both those guys talking.
I think so. It's the most just informative, analytical answer that was probably given between those two. It's probably the best question that was asked. And so, yeah, I agree. Now, I think footwork is probably one of the biggest issues that Rudolph has to work on, and just overall pocket presence. And if he improves that, then you might have something. But until he does, it's going to be hard for him to consistently succeed in the NFL whenever he's still running himself into a ton of pressure.
And you know what? We didn't cover this on Minkah, and this is probably the most important thing maybe that Minkah had to say. The fact that Ben Roethlisberger being there, and them get Minkah talked specifically about how Ben moved him. Moved him around on one particular, I think 7-on-7 or whatnot, and having that veteran quarterback there, showing that defense, doing some things to that defense that maybe they don't get a lot of looks at. Basically a failure by the Steelers defense against a good quality quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger. This part of the offseason was a good learning experience that those kind of things make it worth certain players being at OTAs, if I phrase that right.
Yeah, no, you did. It's a great point. Obviously, Ben is there to help out the offense and the new system, new install from that candidate, but it's a big help for the defense when they're facing that every single day. They're going against, Ben instead of Mason or Haskins or someone like that, and I think it makes everybody better. And it just improves the energy of practice, too. If it's anything like training camp, I know obviously it's not as intense, OTAs are, as camp. But on days in Latrobe where Ben didn't practice or wasn't there for whatever reason, the energy level of practice was just always lower just because it just didn't have that same tempo to it when number 7 was out there. And so I'm guessing the energy level is probably raised whenever I see Ben out there at practice.
So I think this was the best quote. I'm happy that Ben is out here. He's been doing this for a while. He doesn't have to be out here and competing against us, but chooses to come and compete. And he's out there. Everybody gets better. Not too many quarterbacks can do the things that he does. The very first play, he kind of held me in the middle of the field a little bit and made a throw backside. Not too many guys are doing that across the league, so me going up against that, I get to go back and watch film, or even on the field, I could have done this better. I think that's the money quote right there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Minkah went on to say, they're facing a lot of good quarterbacks this year, and to see that guy in practice every single day is gonna make them better. And so, yeah, I think that is a hidden benefit to Ben being there at OTAs.
All right, we have carved those 2 interviews up today, and I don't think we know just quite yet who's going to talk on Wednesday.
Speaking of Ben, Dave, you had done. I know you teased it for a couple of days now, and had the article go up yesterday morning on Steelers Depot, charting Ben and some of the deep ball completions of improvising. Is that how I should best phrase that study?
Yeah, more than anything, Alex, I a lot of these studies I do because of myself, because I want to know the results and be able to talk about them. It's my own wonderment. And that's obviously how a lot of these things start. I know for me and for you the same way. Well, what is it? Well, I like to dive into some of this and see what the results are, and see if my own kind of preconceived or remembrance or narrative stands the test of going back and looking back at the tape and charting some of this again, too. Now, I'm going to, as the rest of the summer goes on, get more into just every aspect of every deep ball of 20 yards or more that Ben has thrown since 2016, because I think that's a fair amount of time, right, to kind of see where he was and where he is. Would you agree? I mean, is there any sense of going back before 2016? Because obviously a lot, he had kind of Antonio Brown in his prime in 2016. He had the emergence of Juju in
2017.
17, and now you're into where his current set of receivers are now with obviously with Chase Claypool and James Washington. So I think that's a fair amount of time, right? And then obviously you had the year missed in there and how he came back from that in 2020. So I think that's a good subset of years to look at. And first and foremost, I think you and I had the conversation of completions in general. And let's make sure we re-quantify this here. When we're talking about deep completions here specifically right now, we're talking about, or any deep pass right now, we're talking about balls thrown 20 or more yards down the field. Now, once again, the NFL qualifies, and why the heck they came up with this as a qualifier, I don't know. But 16 or more yards down the field is what the NFL considers a deep pass. We're, for throughout the study, you're going to be looking at balls 20 or more yards down the field when it comes to Roethlisberger. And specifically, I wanted to first look at his completions dating back to 2016 on the deep balls, because I believe you and I got into some sort of conversation of, I wonder how many of those deep ball completions were extended play type scenarios, right? And especially like in 2016 and 2017, or even 2018, it felt like more of those were extended play type situations. At least in my recollection, it did. I don't know what if you even put out there what maybe your recollection was in those.
No, I really hadn't. I just was going to wait for the study to see what the actual numbers said.
Well, including the playoffs, he's had 118 deep pass completions of 20 yards or more. Let's see. Let me get my numbers bearing here. A whopping 44 of those went for touchdowns. Is that overly surprising though?
44 went for touchdowns.
44 of 118 deep pass completions went for touchdowns.
Yeah, it seems a little high, 37%. Again, it's for me. Again, I say this all the time. I always struggle without putting that number into context. What are other quarterbacks' numbers like? But it does. I would not have guessed 44 if you had asked me before you told me that information.
But it seems like if you go back in your head, we especially maybe even before last year, Ben was known as kind of year in year out as having the most deep ball touchdowns.
Yeah. Okay.
But even I was surprised that 44 of 118 went for touchdowns. Now 20 of those 44 went to Antonio Brown. 33 of those deep pass completions. Now this is probably not surprising aspect of it. A total of 73 of those 118 deep pass completions went outside the numbers.
How many?
73 of 118.
Yeah, that tracks. That's what 62% will round up to.
And Ben's predominantly been known as a guy that likes to more attack the outside the numbers on deep passes.
Plus, his weapons have been more on the outside. AB and Martavis. He hasn't always had that tight end that's been that great seam guy, for most of his career.
Right. 33 of those went outside the numbers to the left. 40 went to the right side, which tracks. He's right-handed. You would think that there's going to be more to the right side than to the left side. Now, his average completed air yards on these 118 deep passes was 28.4 yards. Is that significant? Well, his average in 2020 was 26.4, so 2 yards less. I don't know. I don't know what to do with that variance.
Yeah, I mean, is it just what is the variance? I have to look at the year by year. How much variance is there?
There really wasn't much, I don't think, between 16, 17, 8 until really last season.
Okay, well, then maybe that means something. Then I don't know.
So 26.4 was his average completed air yard distance last year, which was 2 yards less. Now that's actual air yards. It's not the finished play product. So, but man, is that a byproduct of? I think what I tend to think of though is maybe it's more of a byproduct of him getting the ball out a little bit quicker.
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, I don't have a great answer for that. It could mean nothing. It could just be some noise in the stats for all we know.
All right, now here's where it really got kind of interesting for me here. Only 13 of the 118 deep pass completions Roethlisberger had dating back to 2016 came with him under center.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me just because they're never under center, especially the last couple seasons. I mean, it's good to put the number to it, but I mean, they're never under center.
On top of that, and this is probably where it gets even less unshocking. Is unshocking a word?
It is now.
On top of that, none, zero came from under center in 2020. So he had 0 under center deep ball completions of 20 yards or longer in 2020. Only 12 of Roethlisberger's deep pass completions included play action, and 8 of those came with him under center. So that backs up the narrative that just nobody's learning anything new here, though, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. I'm just curious. I don't know if this data, what is the year-by-year numbers of his deep completions under center of those 13? I'm just curious. Is it slowly falling off year by year, where he had like 5 in 2016 and 3 in 2017 and 0 in 2020?
Hold on here. And
I'm just curious if that's going to slow.
Rephrase the question here.
Well, just give me give me the year by year numbers of his deep ball completions under center of the 13. How many did he have in 2016?
Of under center?
Yes, of those 13. How many did he have in 16?
In 2016, he had, let's see, under center deep ball completion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them.
Okay. How many did he have in 17?
Ooh, 1.
Okay. How many in 18?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
19, did he have 0?
0.
And he had 0 in 2020. So 7-1-5, obviously the injury in 19, and then 0. So 7 of those 13 came in 2016. So more than half of them came in the first year of your study.
Right.
He had more in 2016 than he's had in the last 3 full seasons that he's played.
All right. Let's see. Here's where it got interesting. Okay, once again, only 12 of Roethlisberger's deep pass completions included play action, and 8 of those came with him under center. So, backs up the whole, not using, not using play action a lot, not being under center a lot. None of that's probably shocking, but at least it backs up a lot of what we've known, right?
Sure. Yeah, they have not used play action much. They have not been under center much, and so their numbers there are pretty low.
All right, now here's where it got really, really interesting here, with at least in my recollection to what was actually on tape. Only 18 of the 118 deep pass completions that Roethlisberger has had dating back to 2016 came with him actually extending what we would view as him extending the play. Now,
how did you define that? I'm just curious.
Right. It looked like going off script, in other words. All right, having to avoid pressure, get outside the pocket, just something that did not appear natural.
Were these all was extending the play? Did it have to be outside the pocket, or could it still be inside the pocket if he maneuvered and extended the play for several seconds?
If he had to step up or whatnot, no, I did not view that as an extended play situation.
Okay, gotcha. But were there any?
Now there were a few where he did have to step up and say after 3.5, 4 seconds of being in the pocket and make a play, but it still looked like at least from the all 22 aspect where kind of no routes were broken off, that kind of off script type plays.
Were there any throws or completions here that were within the pocket, or were these all out of pocket completions? Just curious.
If there were any extended play in the pocket scenarios, there weren't many of them.
Okay, very few. Gotcha. I figured as much. I was just curious. Okay, so anyway, I just want to get the parameters around the definition of the word. Go ahead here.
But I thought that number would have been higher.
What number did you have in your head?
I don't know if I had a set number, because I don't know that I knew exactly that it was going to be 118 deep pass completions. Right. But what's 18 divided by 118?
Yeah, it's a pretty low percentage. It's 15%.
I kind of envision it being 30%. Just in my head thinking, oh man, how many times did Ben extend the play, throw the football more than 20 yards down the field that we saw Antonio Brown getting. But I guess come to think of it, a lot of those plays wound up being there were obviously those extended plays that did happen that resulted in explosive plays, but more so with Ben throwing the football less than 20 yards down the field, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Did that number, again, do you have the year-by-year numbers of those extending the play completions? I'm just curious if there's a drop-off as he's gotten older and those knees have gotten older as well.
All right, so what you're asking is, first is, because I'm trying to filter this as I go.
Yeah, just as we did with the 13 of him under center, what is the year-by-year number of extending the play deep ball completions? How many did he have in 2016?
2016, he had 3, 4, 5. I have him down for 6.
Okay, what about 17?
2.
18?
7 in 2018. Okay.
And then I assume
0 in 2019 and 3 last season.
All right, so it's kind of bounced around. 6, 2, 7, and 3, discounting 2019. So there hasn't been an obvious decline in that, I suppose. But
right.
Yeah. Okay.
But here's kind of some of my main takeaways here overall, and I've already cheated because I've gotten into the deep pass incompletions here, at least in 2016 as well too. I don't think Ben's changed too much overall. Maybe some of the mobility factors, obviously, since 2016, but I don't think Ben's changed too terribly much overall as a deep passer in the last several years. Be honest with you.
I don't think he's changed much as a quarterback overall.
Period.
Over those years. Yeah, just in that. Because, I mean, by 2016, he had stopped being the Sandlot Ben because he was like 34 years old, and he used to taking a beating over the years. So I think if you looked at maybe the 5 years prior to that, you would see a real stark difference in some of these numbers. But really, he's been the same quarterback that's really functioned more from, methodical, rhythmic, pocket passer since 2016, really since Todd Haley came on board. And that's the same quarterback he is today.
And once again, I have cheated some going back and looking at some of these incompletions and all like that. The deep ball specifically with Ben, even if you go back and start looking back at some of his incompletions back several years ago, and you and I kind of covered this on the deep ball numbers just a podcast or two ago. Has he really been great? A great deep ball. And by deep ball, I'm meaning 20 yards or more down the field. Has he really been a great deep ball connector in the last 7 years?
Well, I think it's
5-6 years.
I think it's regressed. I think there was a time early in that 7 years where he was fine and he made some plays downfield. I think it's gotten obviously a lot worse the last couple of years, really since like 2017. I'd probably say is when it started to really kind of nosedive. So I think that's probably the way to frame it, the way I would frame it.
Here's the thing that really has stuck out to me going back and looking at some of these deep ball passes. When Ben goes deep, it's usually a timing factor with him. It's usually him identifying a coverage on the outside, getting a certain look on the outside, and then more of a timing go route play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Period. And that is usually an outside. Ben usually identifies it. And I'm not tracking this as far as deep as potential pre-snap kind of changes and all like that. But a lot of times I think you see when Ben goes deep more than 20 yards down the field, it's usually outside the numbers, and it's usually he got a coverage that he looked, and it's I don't want to say more so a 50-50 ball, but it ends up seems like being that pre Martavis, going, obviously back when Mike Wallace was roaming the earth.
He's still roaming the earth.
You know what I'm saying? Roaming the fields of Heinz Field. I mean, that guy just blister people, man. And to some degree, Martavis too. But, when's the last time that Martavis Bryant was relevant in a Steelers offense?
Yeah. It's been a while. So, yeah, if I had to guess, and obviously you did the tape study, so you would have a better feel for this than I would. I'm sure Ben took most of his shots against single high safety. He would look off the safety, right at the snap, and then come back to the other side and chuck it up for Antonio Brown or whoever the receiver might have been.
Right, and that's been Ben's deep game for the most part. Now, and I mean, we don't see him throw to the middle of the field past 20 yards a lot. It does happen. And I mean, we saw it a couple times last year, and it wasn't awful, I don't think, overall. It's just something that he doesn't do and hasn't done, all right, from that aspect of it here. Now, here's the other thing that stuck out to me, as well, too, obviously with the shotgun and not being under center and those kind of things. You and I have talked, and this kind of got into my mind here. You and I have talked a lot about potentially Roethlisberger doing more pistol this year.
Yep.
I'm starting to doubt whether or not we're going to see a lot of that, to be honest with you, because that's not who he is. And I kind of wonder if we'll see, what leads us to believe that maybe there'll be a very noticeable uptick in pistol versus him just being in a shotgun.
Well, that's the point, is that they're trying to make Ben a little different than who he is to add a different element to this offense, because we know he does not want to be under center, correct? He does not like being under center. I know he says
he'll tell you otherwise.
He's not going to say. Okay, let's put it this way: the Steelers very rarely have been under center the last 5 years, right? That's just a numbers thing. We know that Matt Canada's offenses have generally been under center, and he likes play action. He likes his quarterbacks to be under center. He's talked about that in clinics before. So what is the compromise between those two things? Because obviously you want to do things that Canada likes and mesh with his philosophy, but also you got to look at your personnel and their strengths and what they like to do and what they don't like to do. And I think the biggest compromise to that is pistol. And Matt Canada's talked about that. He's had clinics. I've done articles on that talking about the benefit of pistol. Every single run that you can run under center, you can do at a pistol. And so I'm not saying we're going to see it at a 40-50% clip the way that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens do, but I think you'll see an intentional act of him actually using pistol. And you saw a little bit of that last year, more so than past years. I think you'll continue to see that this year. So I say that for two reasons. A, because it seems to be the best compromise between Ben and Canada, and then B, because we actually did see a little bit more of it last year. I forget what the numbers were. They weren't, eye-popping, but they were noticeable. I can pull those numbers up again at some point. So I think that's the reason why my guess is we'll see some more of it.
I think it helps you a little bit from all aspects of the offense. I mean, RPOs out of that kind of stuff. Obviously with the motion, having the quarterback a little bit closer to gives you the ability to underneath handoff or versus orbit. Motion type kind of things, less of a distance for a wide receiver to motion in orbit type situation. On top of that, we don't have not a lot of tape of Ben working out of the pistol period. So
right. Well, I mean, Mike Munchak always wanted to do it. They never did, but it's a new OC. And the pistol rate did go up last year. I forget what the numbers were, but it was up a couple percentage points. So, I mean, I think there was some hidden information that said that number is going to continue to go up.
How will that help Ben in the passing game?
I think it's about less in the passing game, more about Ben in the run game. But I think it opens up more play action because obviously I think you can get a better run action look and a feel for things with pistol than you can at a shotgun with the running back sidecar as opposed to being behind you, which you'd be in pistol. And so I think that'll open up play action, which opens up the deep ball, which is probably going to help his arm because he needs some help trying to throw the ball downfield.
What happens if you get in a situation where you try to start using them more in pistol and we talk about you just mentioned Lamar Jackson, all like that, mesh charge. Ben ain't gonna like that aspect of these defensive ends or outside linebackers just hitting them for the sake of hitting them.
Well, you can do a mesh charge out of shotgun too. I mean, everyone has a mesh point.
Sure,
I mean, no one's worried about Ben running.
He's further deeper,
Yeah, but he's still defenseless. If they mesh charge you and they want to hit your quarterback, then I mean, if they really want to just take out Ben and because he's not a running threat, then I mean, then you're playing with 10 as a defense and it's going to help Pittsburgh. But I mean, shotgun or pistol, you can make because the Steelers, the Ravens are in shotgun a lot too, and the Steelers run mesh charge out of that. It's not just a pistol thing.
I've come away so far with thinking about Roethlisberger dating back to 2016. Obviously, I got a long way to go here. With looking at and I'll tell you this, and at least early in 2016, he got away with a lot of interceptable balls, a lot of them, and I think that's going to show up a lot on the deep passes here on the incompletion study as I go through this year by year. Is that Ben Roethlisberger's gotten away with a lot of balls that should have been intercepted deep. Okay. Take that however you want to listening to this, but overall, I've come away with a feeling that he hasn't really changed too much as a deep ball passer since 2016. That he is who he is in that aspect of his game, and other than guys like Chase Claypool and Juju Smith maybe doing a better job of the contested catch aspect, something we just hit on recently. I don't know if we're going to see a high connectivity. I don't think we're going to see that deep ball completion rate go up significantly with him.
Yeah, I've wondered if this team, and I think I mentioned this in the past, throw that deep ball earlier, just to let the receiver run to the football. Because if you really do like a traditional 7-step drop and then chuck it up, I mean, that ball is probably going to be underthrown too often. And so maybe you throw the ball on a 5-step drop, throw it earlier, let the receiver catch up to the football. That's a way to maybe mitigate some of the lack of arm strength that Ben now has. And maybe that's a way to improve the deep ball game.
I think the biggest aspect of Ben Roethlisberger as a passing quarterback as it relates to this year will be his ability to target the field more past the 7-yard mark, between 7 and 12, 7 to 15 yards down the field, and how he's able to connect in those situations. I think that's going to be the biggest question mark of him in 2021, is his ability to throw the football, more than 5 yards down the field. Because look, I think you're going to see the same kind of deep ball percentage rate, both attempt wise and connectivity wise. I'd like to see, obviously, his connectivity rate go up, and maybe if you have a guy like Chase Claypool come down with some more contested catches, that obviously can help in that aspect. But I don't think you're going to see a drastic increase in his deep ball connectivity in 2021. I don't think you're going to see a great increase in his deep ball because, like we said, he had fourth most deep pass attempts. What's wrong with that? I mean, you obviously probably don't want to see that number go up. If anything, you probably hope maybe that number comes down a little bit, him having to throw more than 20 yards down the field here. So I don't think you're going to see a big variance in that. I think the biggest question is in the passing game, his ability, his average depth of target number obviously has to come up, correct?
Yes.
All right, and by that number coming up, that does not mean throw the football down the field more than 20 yards more than he's already doing. Because obviously that would increase your average depth of target number, just throwing the football more than 20 yards down the field more. That's not where the answer is in that. All right. And then you got to see his average depth of completion yardage go up quite significantly.
Yeah, this offense can't just be the small menu of the short 1 and 3 step passing game. That has its place, and it'll still be, I think, a pretty large part of this offense. But it has to be more than just that for this offense to be efficient and consistent from start to finish.
And look, I wrote a couple of years ago too, before his injury too, that he had become a dink and dunk. That there was a level of dink and dunkness to him that was. People saying, well, Ben's dink and dunk. Well, yeah, he was. I mean, now, do they have to? I believe you have to mix the running back into this a little bit more than we've seen in previous. But make no mistake about it, James Conner a couple years ago still had a high rate of completions, right? So to him, he had a high number of receptions, I should say. But anyway. What I've gathered so far, where they need Ben Roethlisberger and this offense to be better, obviously beyond running the football effectively and successfully more, is you've got to have more of that 7 to 12 yard stuff, I think, hit. And
sure.
That's where the secret is in the Steelers passing game in 2021 and Ben Roethlisberger. It's not the deep ball. It's not deep ball connectivity. It's more than 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. It's probably in that 5 to 10 yard range.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that's a good way to frame it overall. So when is the incompletion study going to come out? Is there a timetable on that?
I'm probably going to have to do this by years because there's so many. Unfortunately, there's more incompletions than there were completions. So probably going to do this by year. About halfway through 2016 right now.
All right, good deal. All right, Dave, anything else for us to talk about today? I do want to mention, just really quickly, I guess kind of made me laugh a little bit. Nate Burleson said the Steelers will have one of the best running back duos in the NFL in 2021 with Najee Harris and Benny Snell. It's kind of like saying, what the greatest brothers scoring duo in NHL history is? The brothers that have the most amount of points in hockey history. You know the answer to that?
The Gretzky brothers, right?
The Gretzky's, yeah, Wayne and Brent, who had 4. It's kind of what it feels like. Najee Harris and Benny Snell.
I actually saw Brent play a minor league hockey game when he was with the Atlanta. I think it was the Knights. Was it? I saw a game. I saw a minor league game with him. Actually, I think play a game. Once. Yeah, that's like who was the Steelers' best wide receiver duo about 8 years ago. It was obviously Antonio Brown and Alex Kozora, right?
Right. Yeah. It's like saying Najee Harris and Dave Bryant will be the top duo.
Yeah.
Najee Harris doing a lot. That just made me laugh, but. I don't know. Sometimes it's probably just production stuff where where Burleson wanted to pick Najee Harris, but then he had to pick somebody else as the duo part of the question, so he just said Benny Snell and just kind of made it fit the answer.
I get from the root of kind of where he was going from, but when you start going back and digging back through the numbers, man, and I'm the one that wrote this up yesterday. Last season, Saints running backs Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray combined to have, believe it or not, over 2,500 yards, total yards from scrimmage. Additionally, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt combined to have 2,300 total yards from scrimmage. Now, I did not look in really. I didn't try to dig. I didn't want to spend too much. I wanted to give the readers some new information in there that maybe they didn't know, and I think I did that. It's one of my goals to, in every post that I write. But I didn't want to go down the list of 13 duos, trying to research that. Derrick Henry registered over 2,100 yards from scrimmage just on his own last in 2020. So I sort of get kind of where Nate Burleson was going with this because, I mean, let's face it, it's plausible that a guy like Najee Harris could have 1,800 total yards from scrimmage, right? I mean,
sure.
Is that out of the question?
No, but it's Harris doing 90% of the legwork in this duo.
Right, and if you did get him to 1,900 yards, are you telling me you're going to still be able to get Benny Snell to 400? Another 400 yards there?
Yeah, that'd be tough to do. So it's like saying the best running back duo in football is Derrick Henry and Darrington Evans. It's like 98% of that is coming from one man.
I mean, I think really theoretically the best way to have to threaten the I don't know what you would. I mean, I think 2,500 yards combined between two running backs is phenomenal for obvious reasons there. But I think if such an instance was going to happen with the 2021 Steelers, I would think that it would be more inclined maybe to be a McFarland that broke off a couple of long ones in there, and better chance of him maybe being part of the duo. More so than Benny Snell. No disrespect for Benny Snell, but how is Benny Snell going to see a lot of the snaps that going to produce some of that yardage if Najee Harris stays on the field?
Yeah, no, I would agree. If you're going to choose a duo partner, I would choose McFarland over Snell. But again, either way, Harris is going to be the guy with the vast majority of touches and yardage.
Here's the best case scenario here is that somehow a section of two of whatever running backs you want, and obviously Najee Harris is probably going to be one of those two, somehow managed to combine for 2,000 total yards from scrimmage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if they do that, I don't care what the split is. That'll be a good thing for the Steelers offense in their season.
Right. If that happens, then this team's probably in the playoffs, playoffs. But I understand. It was a weird kind of point to the fence kind of moment for Nate Burleson,
Yeah, but anyway, if you want to read about the Najee Harris potential career, speaking of his future, I have my best and worst case scenarios, 8th annual, up on Steelers Depot today. Just kind of a fun, don't take it too seriously, please, but just a fun, creative exercise about the best and worst case scenarios of the Steelers rookie class.
All right, with that, I think we got an email or two to pop through here real quick here because we got to get to some Zooms coming up here. Jason Campbell writes in, hello, Dave and Alex. It's obvious that Najee and Le'Veon Bell share similar physical traits, height, weight, yada, yada. However, I think Najee is faster than Le'Veon and has better long speed than he's given credit for. In all of your tape study, how often was he caught from behind? I'm wondering what his 20+% rate would be if those 15-yard TDs were from, say, the 35. Would he have been caught? Thanks. The problem with that, Jason, is you have to give everybody the chance to have the 20-yard or the 15-yard touchdowns to be 20-yard touchdowns. And, man, I mean, you talking about having to pour through a lot of tape and data. Hey, here's the long and short of it. Najee's not going to run away from many people, period. Does he or will he have better long speed than Le'Veon? I mean, that's I don't really see it. Honestly, I really think that both of them kind of comparison, at least from what I remember as far as college long speed go. Here's the biggest crush when it comes to long runs. I think the most important factor here is the 10-yard or longer run here. And is it great to have 20-yard runs? Absolutely. I love them. I think explosive plays mean so much in not only the college level, but the NFL level as well, too. I think the 10-plus yard range, which Najee had like 21.3 or 21.4% rate of 10-plus yard runs or longer in college level, I think that's the most amazing thing that maybe he could potentially bring to the Steelers during his rookie season. However, it's not the end-all, do-all, as the 2020 Buccaneers showed us. They had the second lowest amount of 10-yard runs in the NFL in 2020. The Buccaneers, the worst, the lowest was the Steelers, but yet their success rate was obviously more than enough, was well over 50%. They had a middle of the road run success rate as a group, whereas the Steelers were well under 50%. That was the key factor there. So I don't get caught up with Najee and explosive plays. I think the one of the major things to look at maybe with Najee in his rookie season is his 10-yard, what we call maybe a 10-yard explosive run aspect of it. Boy, if he could deliver you, I don't know, a dozen, I'll even go further than that. If he could deliver you 20, maybe that's a little bit high, but if he could deliver you 20 to 30 10-yard runs or more in 2021 and still have a successful run rate of greater than 50% as a whole, I think a lot of good things have happened in a running game in 2021.
No, I agree with that, and just overall efficiency and being better in short yardage. A weird stat is the Steelers, they were dead last in runs at 10-plus yards last year, but they were, I believe, 11th in runs of 20-plus yards. Very, very weird stat.
That is weird. It was a feast and famine situation there, but wasn't. I know one of those was Ray McLeod.
Right on that wineback play, but still a run play.
And one was James Conner late in a
Denver
game, right?
End of the Broncos game, yeah,
right?
58 yards, yeah. But just a weird. They were terrible in all of the run categories, but I think tied for 11th in runs at 20-plus yards.
All right, we need to start wrapping this up here. I'm afraid because I got to get ready to record some stuff here. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button for $25 for one calendar year. You can have an ad-free version of the site that's been very, very popular. Get us some emails in here to answer here. I know it's the off season here, but theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. We'll be glad to maybe hit some of these more on Friday as well. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.